Let's just take a moment to inhale, bringing in all the peace, presence, and love that exists in every molecule that we inhale. And as we exhale, we know that those things, the light and the life, the love, the presence and the peace, are increased. And we inhale and exhale, adding living light to the world around us. O great Creator, it is our word that we be elevated out of the mind of this day and the mind of this world, that we may experience and know ourselves to be in this world but not of it, that we may know how to work in this world as workers in the vineyard and help to heal and elevate and illuminate. So let this be in the name and presence of our Master Jesus Christ and of our Mother Mary. Glory unto God, glory unto the Christ, glory unto the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so tonight I want to talk about what we, in our tradition, call the law, and where that came from, or where it became popularized, and how we work with it. Okay. So in the late 1800s on through the middle of the 1900s, and beyond a little, there was what was known as the New Thought movement. This was a movement that was combining the idea of science with spirituality, and the idea that there was a formula that could be implemented that would make prayer effective all the time, every time, right? And that we could take control of our lives through this science of mind, and not be victimized by life, but actually be in control of things. And so there were such luminaries as Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of the Science of Mind and Divine Science movement, Joel Goldsmith, Mary Baker Eddy, the Christian Scientist, and Madame Blavatsky, the Theosophist, the founder of Theosophy. And so I looked it up. I wanted to get an idea of what this New Thought movement was being seen as, and how it was being defined. It's something that was impossible to define while it was going on, because it was morphing and changing and becoming different things, and you know, even now, if we look back on it, there's no continuity to it. It's not a single thing. But there is a theme that seemed to be running through it, and they identified 4 things, which were God, or infinite intelligence, is supreme, universal, and everlasting. Okay. Number 2 is divinity dwells within each person, that all people are spiritual beings. Okay, great. Number 3, the highest spiritual principle is loving one another unconditionally and teaching and healing one another. And finally, 4, our mental states are carried forward into manifestation and become our experience in daily living. And that's what we find so many have emphasized in this, is this idea that as a man thinketh, so is he. That our thoughts are vibrations that we can manifest and continually do manifest the conditions of our reality, of our experience, whether it's our health or our wealth or our relationships or whatever else it is, that these things are all driven by the nature of the thoughts that we have. And that there were some people who ran with that more than with the God is love and unconditional and universal aspects of that New Thought movement, and said, this is really hot stuff. It works really well, and what a blessing it is to mankind to be able to demonstrate it and teach it so that people realize that they are co-creators with God and that they're not subject to the whims of whatever thing is happening around them, that they are at the rudder of the ship. Okay. The mystery school in which I was initiated and trained was the Holy Order of Man, and had its roots, it drank deeply of the New Thought movement. Okay. In a very well-balanced way, I might add. It wasn't just the emphasis on the science of mind, although that was definitely emphasized, but also on the devotional side of things and the need to have our hearts opened and connected with a living sense of a living presence that we knew as divine, right? Both within us and around us. That the initiations would help bring us, escort us into those inner chambers of reality that were connected with the One in all of its magnificence. But very much part of that was understanding how the Creator creates, and that by understanding that, we understand how we create, or vice versa, because it was as above, so below. Right? So if we could understand how we do anything, then we could understand how everything works. Okay? So the law of mind, the science of mind, was broken down as in this way. You connect with a sense of the universality of mind to the best degree that you can. Okay, so when you're in meditation, there's a moment perhaps when you feel the barrier between what seems to be your mind and a broader mind dissolves, and you're just, okay. Some people will experience that just staring out the window and defocusing, and all of a sudden they're in this timeless place, spaceless place. Okay, so that would be the first step. The second is while there then, visualizing with extreme specificity that which you wish to have happen. Okay? You weren't asking, you weren't begging, you weren't pleading. You were merely projecting into this fertile substance of universal mind that which you wished to have happen. And like I said, with extreme specificity, it would have, to the degree that you could make it specific and definite, with no equivocation, no fuzziness, to that degree your prayer would be answered. It would manifest. What you were looking at would happen. Okay. The next part of that was to let go of the prayer, of this thing that you built. It's like you have created a form in mind. And by letting go of it, you allowed the spirit, the life-giving spirit, to fill it, because it's a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, and the only thing that was maintaining it and keeping it from being fulfilled was your focus and your will on it. You've made it very specific, and now you let go of it, you walk away from it, and you know down to your toenails that it's already done. It's a fait accompli. There's no looking over your shoulder, right? It's just done. Okay. To the degree that we could do those things, that we could experience a sense of a broader mind, to the degree that we had a very specific goal in mind, if it was a job, if it was a specific car or whatever it is, whatever your thing was, that you were focused on it that way, and to the degree that you could let go of it and not look back. Those made the law of prayer effective. Okay. Now, I've talked with a lot of people over the years, and a lot of the people that I was actually even trained with, who said, yeah, okay, but, life happened, and, I had this ache and pain, and I had this happen, or somebody I know had that happen, and I certainly wasn't asking for that thing, and yet it happened. And so, you know what? I'm not so sure about this law business. Show me how it works. How are you affected by it? How are you demonstrating that you are performing miracles, right? Because this is really what we're talking about, to the degree that Yogananda talking about people being able to manifest flowers in the palm of their hand and scents and things like that as he was going through his journey of looking for his teacher, and ran across all these various mystics and adepts that could do various things because they had perfected their use of this same law that we're talking about to one degree or another. It did not, by the way, and he made it clear, make them holy. It just made them adept. Okay. So some people were very good at it. And our teacher back in the day said how if you really want to see somebody who knows how to use the law, go find yourself a successful businessman. Which I didn't particularly resonate with because I was just newly out of bell-bottoms and tie-dyed and shaved and haircut and slapped into black clerical garb, and because I wanted to, there was something in this mystery school that I knew I had to be there for, and yet now you're going to tell me that business people are an example of this thing? Okay. But over the years, I've come to understand what he was talking about, that, God is no respecter of persons. It makes the sun to shine on the just and the unjust, and the rain, and all, right? And it has nothing to do with being, quote, good people. It has nothing to do with using these tools for altruistic purposes. Okay? And consequently, we've had a whole spate of these prosperity theologies, these prosperity religions that have sprung up. And, if you're really loving God, if you're really following Jesus, then you're going to have a Mercedes. And if you don't, then doggone it, there's something wrong with you. You're just not accepting. So the reason that we were taught the law, the reason that it was emphasized, wasn't so that we could get the specific color card that we wanted. It was so that we could use it. It would become a part of our arsenal or our toolbox that we could use in service, how to help people, right? As far as our own concerns are, we know that our needs are taken care of. That's the part of the Bible, on one hand he says, knock and it shall be opened. If you have faith as much as a grain of mustard seed, you shall move mountains. Whatsoever you ask in my name shall be done. Boom, okay? On the other hand, he says, don't take any thought for yourself, because you can't do anything. You can't change your stature, your height, by 1 cubit, right? Look at the birds, look at the flowers. That's what you should be doing. It's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, so accept that. So there's these two things that are balanced out there that seem to be contrary ideas. But this is where that balance of heart and mind come in, of the mystic and the occultist. And that's really what we're talking about, the mystic heart and the occultist who uses the laws of mind to move power, force, and energy into form. Okay? There's a balance that's required if we're going to be adept at service, and we're going to be able to be well-rounded servants, then we need to learn both those approaches. Okay. We will find ourselves naturally inclined to one or the other. We'll have more emphasis naturally on a soul personality level to be more heart or more mind oriented. But we need to know that it's both. And so when we're challenged and asked, well, if this is such a law, then show me something. And what it comes down to, and has come down to for me, is not to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to bend a spoon or something like that, but to say, watch this. Okay? Doesn't seem so miraculous, does it? If we accept that there's such a thing as above, so below, and we accept that we are divine symbols of the universe, and that by knowing ourselves in all of the different aspects that we are, that we find our connection with the universal, then all of a sudden we say, okay, wait a minute, let's break that movement down. What happened when I did this? I visualized it. It happened so quickly and so automatically that I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to wrestle with it. But if you break those things down, there isn't a thing that you do that doesn't use and invoke this law. Okay? Now, all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so mysterious. It seems really mundane. It seems like, oh, that's just how life is. That's how we do anything, right? Okay. But we sure would like to see an example of how to use this law and the word, because that goes hand in hand with it. Our word, what we say, has power. Because the word is a flesh of the thought. It's the container, it's the physical part of the non-physical thought, which precedes the action. But we'd like to see that demonstrated. God, you know, I'd like to go to India with my friend Swami Yogananda and see some of the things that he saw and go, wow, you know, very inspiring. And I would like to see those things because I want to have examples that I can emulate. You know, when you see something done, you know, when Serena Williams hit the circuits and Venus Williams hit the circuit playing tennis, they raised the bar. They elevated the game. Now, everybody's taking huge whacks at that ball and just, they're fit and tough and focused and all of that, right? Some of these people are phenomenal. We see that. People wouldn't have thought it possible until somebody demonstrated it was possible. And now it's normal. On somebody's level, it's normal, all right? But we understand that. And if I want to have a tool in my toolbox that I can reach for and use that's effective in my service to others, then I would like to have the most powerful state-of-the-art tool that exists. And so I've been talking for a while now about St. John's epistle, that God is light and in him is no darkness at all, right? And that has to be our constant mantra, our constant drumbeat, that we have to know that. He said in that passage, we know and we declare this unto you, that God is light and in him is no darkness at all. It wasn't like maybe, or we think possibly that this is so. He said, no, we saw it. We touched the word of life. We handled it. We communed with it. And we know it so thoroughly that we can declare it to you with no equivocation. God is light and in him is no darkness at all. You say, great. How does that dovetail with all this law that we're talking about? And is there an example that we can look towards that says, yes, we're raising the bar. We're going to show you how effective this can be. Okay. Bear with me. One of the New Thought groups and luminaries was The Power of Positive Thinking by the Reverend Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. And if you read his quotes, and as a matter of fact, I went out and got the book. I hadn't looked at it in many, many years. And it popped up on my radar, and I'll tell you how in just a minute. And I said, I've got to see again what he was talking about. And in fact, he was talking about the same kinds of things that I was reading in those 4 aspects of the New Thought movement, with a great deal of emphasis on visualizing, knowing, and succeeding. I'm driving around and I'm listening to NPR, and they're interviewing this guy who's talking about Donald Trump and how he was raised in that church in New York, that Norman Vincent Peale was his pastor. Norman Vincent Peale performed his first wedding, right? And so I started looking up Donald Trump quotes about that, what interviews had gone on, and how much of an impact did that have, and what did he get out of that, those teachings and those sermons. He talks about the sermons, they were marvelous. You know. So what was his takeaway? So I printed out a bunch of things, and I was highlighting a bunch of things, and I highlighted it all in yellow, and you can't see any of the yellow highlight in here. So just bear with me a minute. As Peale wrote, affirm it, visualize it, believe it, and it will actualize itself. Okay, well, you can see where I'm going with this. There are, let me read a couple chapter titles. This will tell you enough. Believe in yourself. Okay? Expect the best and get it. Chapter 8 is, I don't believe in defeat. Okay. So the key to using the law is to have so much knowing that you are overriding your own disbelief. Don't confuse me with the facts. I've said that a lot. Don't confuse me with the facts. God is light, and there is no darkness in God at all. So, sure, there's all kinds of examples that can be pointed to that say, yeah, but I don't want to know that. That says, yeah, but. No, God is light, period, right? So there's a kind of divine self-deception that is required for that. You know, like self-delusion. And what makes it okay to have that brand of self-delusion is that for altruistic reasons, that you are connecting yourself with the broader cosmos in that. Because if there's anything that you can say about the light, is that it is inclusive. There's nothing exclusive about it. It excludes nobody. It excludes no thing. Because all bodies and all things are comprised of light, because light is all that exists to create anything out of. In him was light, and the life was the light of men. That's all that is. All things were made by this thing. Okay? But there's that other kind of self-serving delusion, self-delusion that takes place, that is required when you want that Mercedes. Okay, it's not bad. You have the opportunity, the ability to do that. There's no reason why you can't have that very specific thing or a very specific job or whatever it is that you feel that you need to do. That's okay to do. But there is this temptation, there's this pitfall that's embedded in all of this. And that is, unless you are being escorted through this process in this balanced way that I'm talking about, then you have people who begin to override reality. And by reality, I mean that which stands in the light, right? And declare their own vision and project that on others, okay? And so we can see that. And so I'm trying very decidedly not to make this a political statement, but rather an object lesson in how effective the law can be. This man was able to, through his repetition and his constant drumbeat about how good he was and how smart his people were and how effective he was doing, how effective his campaign was being and how successful it was being. And don't confuse me with the facts about, no, there aren't people showing up. Don't confuse me with the facts about the polls. None of that matters. None of that is real. That's all what fake. What is real is what I'm telling you. And he did that so thoroughly and knew that so completely, down to his toenails, that he convinced others. Others fell into his gravitational pull, into his orbit, and said yes to that. They synced with that. That's entrainment. That's what that's called. When we come in contact with a very powerful vibration, we will entrain to it. Okay. There is no more powerful vibration than light. Okay. So if we can emulate number 45 in that way and say, look how effective it is. If you just say, wait a minute, no, this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth. And have that constant drumbeat that says, God is light, there is no darkness. God is light, there is no darkness. Then we are bound to be successful because we are extensions then of the divine. We're extensions of the self, which knows nothing other than light. You know, Sri Ramana Maharshi says, self is all that is. Right? Self is all that is. So we have that experience and we give lip service to it. Now, if we're not having that experience and we're giving lip service to it, then we're just another noise. It's just more noise, right? We can have that experience so that we can make those declarations with the same conviction that St. John had, by simply accepting that it's the Creator's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. It does not require anything else anymore. So in the beginning when I said, let's just take a few breaths and inhale that light and exhale increased light. Yeah, right? And we see that shimmering darkness. We see the glow. We see the source of that light within us, perhaps, and move towards it. We allow the gravitational pull to pull us to its own center, to our own center. For it is the voice of self that makes that declaration. That's the power of that word. And if somebody can do that who has no inkling of the divine mind and of the nature of being and of love and of altruism and empathy and caring and selflessness and humility and service, how much more can we who are striving to take those qualities on add our voice to the voice of the great self, declaring that God is light and in this being there is no darkness at all. Okay. Any questions, comments? You remember the Jedi mind trick? Right? And these are not the droids we're looking for. You know, these are not the droids we're looking for. Right? That's exactly what happens. That's entrainment. That's that coming in contact with a more powerful knowing, a more powerful, focused intention, and becoming a sounding board for that. We do that unconsciously in many ways, and becoming awake. Part of becoming awake is realizing what's happening there. Yeah, John.
Steve Jobs talked about that pretty extensively as altered field or his altered reality field. I'm not using the right term, but that reality he had that would make things happen within our phone, smartphone, really.
Yeah.
That he had that, I can't think of the term he used, but it was that.
Yeah. You know, we know that when we focus and concentrate on something, anything, that we begin to resonate vibrationally at that frequency, whatever that is. And that it's that vibrational environment that we become that draws to us other things that resonate with that same frequency. You know, that's the birds of a feather flock together idea. We start to draw to ourselves those things. Okay? And so this is part of that same concept, of the same idea of being able to focus on that which you wish to have happen and know that it is going to happen and walk away from it, because that's, you know, where your heart is, there shall your treasure be, you know. And that's the same thing. If we are placing all of our focus and attention on the light and are opening our hearts to the divine impulse of selfless love that bathes us all the time, then we become so transfused with that and resonate so thoroughly with that vibration that other things begin just to gravitate to us that are of that same frequency. right? And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of a deal, right? If, on the other hand, we start concentrating on all the dirt and muck and mire, then that too becomes our vibration. You felt it. You felt it. I'll bet you felt it today. I have. All you need to do is go reading different posts on Facebook, and somebody, you know, people are upset about one thing or another, and you start to listen to it, or you click on something, and you drill down into the story, and oh man, that's, you know, and next thing you know, the world became a darker place, and you're not helping it, right? So again, you know, we know that there's a world of duality, that duality includes light and dark, up and down, before and after, that is the basis of all time and space. It requires duality, okay? That's the sine wave, okay? It requires duality. But there's something beyond that, which is non-dualistic. And that is what we aspire to, right? That which is dualistic has comings and goings, beginnings and ends. That which is infinite and eternal is constant. You know, we're even told that seeking heaven isn't really what we're all about, because there will be a new heaven and a new earth. So why would you put all your eggs in that basket? Rather seek the kingdom of God, which is within you, we're told, right? Seek the kingdom of God that's within you. Because all things spring forth from that place. And that's what we're talking about when we say, God is light, and in it there is no darkness at all. Okay? We give such thanks for the opportunity to share heart to heart, soul to soul, with the all, with each one of us. Let us experience the fullness of your being in each set of eyes that we gaze into. Let us hear your voice coming through the lips of each whom we encounter. Let us discover ourselves as being part and parcel of a single organism. To the greater glory of the whole. Amen. That's all, folks.